and different recipes and have a video to explain what the farm is, because if they come in January, they can't see what it's like in June or July, obviously. So we have some movies for that, and then most of the time they will get on a bus, their bus that they came with, and my brother will take them on a drive-through through the farm, and a lot of times they'll stop. We have a couple cows that we've shown and they're tame and so on, so we get them out so they can pet them and get their picture taken with them, and they feel good about that, which is great. We do that fairly regular.
Yeah. James?
Yeah, we definitely, as years go by, we talk about diversity, and farms are getting more and more diverse too. And we have a lot of dairy industry. It's almost like maybe more geared towards the export market, and a lot of the dairy industry is going a little more towards like the domestic market, and they don't always line up. And so that part's a challenge for us. We do our best to walk the line that we have a lot of people out. And 2 reasons. 1, because people are curious. 2, when you go to value added, you're not just a food producer, you're also an entertainer. And I don't know how I feel about that some days, but it just comes with the territory. People might not buy a $4 a gallon of milk, but maybe they want to come out and see the farm. So you have to embrace that too. Some of the challenges are, we have so many cows in Wisconsin, we're the dairy state, and we keep proclaiming that. But I can drive from Chicago to Minneapolis, and it's almost like you can't see a dairy cow. And all of our tourism and all of our consumers, maybe I see a few beefers up towards Eau Claire, but so people really, every year since we've started in 2008, the question I get every year, almost every tour is, do your cows go outside? Can your cows go outside? Where do your cows go outside? And so I'm not going to keep telling them reasons why or why not. I'm just, at some point, those are my customers, and I say, yes, our cows are going outside here. No, they don't go out in winter, and as he had said, people understand, kind of, most people have common sense, and they get that, and rain and all that stuff, but people definitely care about what farmers are doing with their animals, and so we definitely then have to make sure that we're listening to that, or else then I'm losing my customers.
Yeah, very true. I think about the number of people of all backgrounds that come in, maybe because of your location. When you are close to the Twin Cities or close to Madison or Milwaukee, you are going to have a variety of backgrounds, and like we've been saying, we're 4 generations away from the farm now, that for the average American citizen. And it is, I know all 3 of you are very, very generous with your time by welcoming people to your farm. So I'm going to kind of shift gears maybe to the future a little bit, and any thoughts or any predictions or things you can share where you kind of see your creamery or your processing business going in the next 3 to 5 years?
We have a lot of opportunity for growth, we feel, and we're going to really focus on that in the next few years. We've met and had made priorities as to what we feel we want to do, especially with the sluggish milk price that we've had to endure for a longer period than we want to admit that we have. So we're going to continue to push growth. We added on to our cheese factory this last year. We completed it in about June, and we've invested in some new equipment so we can run more efficiently and put more product through in a day's time. And so we're going to leverage that.
Yeah, good.
Future-wise, for us, I think sort of more of what we're doing is small businesses or farms. You can only reach out so far. It gets expensive to market the farther you go. So that's why, when we say Minneapolis to Chicago, that's our turf. So coming up, we always have to, we'll probably do a few new products too. People, now you compete with, it's not just milk, it's the plant ones, but it's also all the creations that that dairy companies are coming out with, where it's like milk with 3 things in it, or it's yogurt with 5 things in it. And so those are very hard products for farmstead people to do, because we only have so much. Our plants are not that sophisticated, so we have to sort of keep resonating with the closest to natural or closest to the farm products, and try to push that thought process a little more than if you ever, I spend a lot of time in the grocery stores, way more than my dad ever did, I'm sure, and it gets old, but it's just amazing to see every month there's just more and more stuff coming out, and milk and or brands compete so much more with there's a certain amount of shelf space, and if you're not selling, then you're out, and there's somebody's other product that could be any creation or concoction out there that goes in its place.
Okay. Jerry, anything you could share with us about your cheese factory? The next 3 to 5
years. Our plans and what we hope to do. I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we probably hope to continue growing our cheese sales more than anything. And we have capacity in our plant to run it at least 1 more day a week, and possibly 2. We may need to add storage space, but that is, I think, where the best return on investment for our farm is, since most of that infrastructure is here already. And the market in Minnesota, I think, is quite a bit more open, probably, than it is in Wisconsin, being there's only a couple of us here that are doing farmstead cheese. And so I think that will be our focus.
Yeah, sounds as though you have some lots of potential as well out there. Yeah, good. Well, I do not need to be the only one asking questions. We would like to allow some time here during the hour for questions from the audience. We have a mic in the middle here. If there's anyone that at this time would like to ask any one of our panelists or a question, don't be shy. There's a gentleman, I think, in the back.
Thanks. Question for James. First, a statement. Thank you for not referring to the nut juice as almond whatever it is.
You won't catch me on that one.
I appreciate that, as we have that battle in our hands right now. My question is, so obviously you sell from a farm store. Are you constantly fighting for shelf space at retail, or is most of your sales going direct to consumer?
Oh, probably 90% of our sales are retail to customers, because even though we're 15 minutes outside of Madison, our store traffic is it's high margin, but it's low volume, just because of. But yeah, where we do is we compete at all locations, and every year more of the food dollar gets spent outside of the grocery store too. So that's something that we look at, is how do we capture that? Is it the coffee house or the restaurants or the institutions? Because people just, we all know people buy less groceries and eat at home less. So if I'm trying to sell a gallon of milk, where do I do that? And then also just the challenges of before you could tell your story where your product is, and now you have people that if you shop online and you go on your grocery store website and you see a little 1-inch high square of milk gallons, people don't even know who you are, and generally then people click on the cheapest one. So then I never even had a chance to get that person to buy our product. So those parts of it are really trying to hone in on where are those people.
Anyone else?
Thanks, guys, for your presentation. 2 questions for you. Number one, could you discuss maybe the capital investment to get started in a business like this, and how, what that is and how difficult it is? The second question I would have is, could you expound a little bit on what you do to market your product? Because that's a different skill set than most producers that are milking cows have. Or maybe not just the marketing aspect of it, but just the skill set that it takes to be in a business like this.
Who would like to start off?
I'll start. The skill set is that we're fortunate we're in Wisconsin because we have a great support staff infrastructure in the state. We can go to the Center for Dairy Research, Dairy Farmers of Wisconsin, to help with different projects, to come up with the right cheese, to come up with some marketing, to help with marketing, to help with, I'll call it promotion, some brochures and such. We work with a couple marketing companies, and we also do marketing ourselves. My brother and his wife just went to San Francisco and came back, and about middle of the summer they'll go to New York to a fancy food show. So you have to do the drill. You pay for space to stand there and promote your product and set up meetings with different people you deal with on the East Coast and West Coast and every place in between, and you just can't say, well, I don't want to go because we're making hay, because my brother George isn't involved in that. We run the farm. He runs the cheese factory. He comes over about 3 in the afternoon when he's done at the cheese factory and knocks around and checks out a few fair calves and things like that. But he doesn't come in the morning and milk cows and then shower and then go make cheese, because it's a whole different thing. This morning we plowed the parking lot at 5 o'clock because we had employees coming by 6. We have 45 employees at the cheese factory. So that's how much effort we've put into it to make cheese, to run 5 days a week. To our goal right now, we use about 65% of our milk, and our goal is to use 90% of our milk from 2,100 cows. So the investment, that was a big thing when we started, because we've never went and borrowed that much money at one time before. And when we built in 2001, that was the first new cheese factory in Wisconsin in about 25 years. So it was a big leap for us. For back then it was Badgerland. They were our investor, and to like I say, build it and not have any market. So it took about 3 years to get it running in the black, and we've added on to it 3 times since the first investment. But it was close to $1 million when we built the first little segment. So, and we've done it more than 3 times the size now. So now it's Compeer is still our investor.
Jerry, do you have anything you'd like to share on that question?
Sure. Our plant, of course, much smaller than the Craves, and Elise can make about 1,000 pounds. Well, she makes about 500 pounds of cheese per make. But yes, it was still a very significant investment for us. I always tell people that you probably want to have close to $1 million on hand before you start something. And ours also has a tasting room, and it's a licensed restaurant. We have a liquor license also. So we invested some money there. But for the physical structure and the equipment, I think we had close to $500,000 involved, and then it really took about another $250,000 for the marketing and the operating costs over the next couple of years before the cash flow really got going. So having $1 million on hand to start really would be a smart idea, I think. And you talked about marketing and a different skill set, and I couldn't agree more that it is a completely different business than milking cows, and I think that is one of the first things to look at before you would do something like this. The first thing should not be that I need to make more money on my farm. The first thing should be, do I have the people who want to do something like this? Because you need to be just as passionate about value-added processing as you are about milking cows if you're going to do something like this. And in our case, Elise is really good at marketing. She, and like I said earlier, uses Facebook and has now over 8,000 followers, and that's her primary marketing. She is having a grilled cheese event on Grilled Cheese Day in April. Posted that last week that she was selling tickets for $50 a piece to her event, and sold it out in, I think, about 48 hours just on Facebook. Very little cost, if any, I think, at this point. But also Lucas, her husband, is skilled at that, loves marketing, and her younger sister, Maggie, who worked here on the farm for 1.5 years and then fell in love with a young man from Wisconsin who's in North Carolina now, and that's where she is, and but still working for us from there, and she is doing a lot of the Facebook marketing for us, and also has a natural feel for it and a natural skill set, and I think that's just incredibly important.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of the value added is kind of a gray area, a little fuzzy as to like what works and what doesn't work. I guess I would share with you, there is an emerging model that seems to be the most successful, and that's generally smaller, I would say 75 to 200 cows, somewhat close to large urban areas with a lot of family help. And so that's the most common operation that, of all the visitors that come see us, it's usually farms from other states. They just have less opportunities than we do even here. If they want to milk cows, they got to figure something out. So that size, they have a lot of family labor. They have, as in his case, daughters that are very good with people. And so that mix of being able to start something up for somewhere between $500,000 at the low end to maybe $2 million on the high end or higher end, though that seems to be something that I see more and more of, and more success stories. You jump up a little level or two, we're actually a little bit of an oddity in value added because it just gets to be too much milk to move. It's not that we're huge, it's just you think about the number of cows you have and how much they produce 7 days a week, 365, and now all of a sudden I got to sell that. It's just challenging, and so if you get a little larger operations, then there's more partnering going on. You need to work with other people to sell that product because one, you're selling it farther and farther away, and two, it's just more expensive to sell more product. And so from a marketing standpoint, I just look at how much do I want to spend to get into it? Do I have some of those things like family, cheap help, and people that are into that? And if I don't, then do I have an outlet to work with businesses that maybe I can work with that will move my product to kind of a higher tier or two than I'm capable of. And Sassy Cow isn't capable of marketing throughout the nation. We're capable of our little thing, but if we needed to go bigger, we need more partners and people.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else have a question from the floor? We can. Good gentleman.
Two questions. What percentage of your milk production do you process in your value-added business? And secondly, when you look at the farm enterprise and the value-added enterprise, can you talk about the profitability potential in each?
I stated before that throughout the year, it's about 65% goes to the cheese factory. The rest we market through family dairies or farm first, and it goes to another cheese factory, but we get paid commodity price like everybody else does out here. Right now, the value added works very good because the price of milk is poor. In 2014, when the price of milk was real good, the cheese factory didn't make so much. But in our case, the cheese factory pays the farm market price. They're two separate businesses, two separate sets of books, two separate financial portfolios. So the cheese factory pays the farm market price for the milk. That way we aren't going to get in a pinch with the IRS or trying to cook numbers or creating false good feelings about the farm or the cheese factory. We really use it as a management tool also.
Farms are very different. Diversity, everybody's operation is different. We are a little different. We operate our creamery at basically break even. I don't want to make any money at the creamery, and I want as much dollars as I can to send to the farm because first and foremost, I'm a farmer. So you put your money where you like to do your stuff. So we use all of our organic milk goes to the creamery. That's our only outlet. And give or take 5 days a week of our conventional dairy goes to the creamery. 2 days a week we sell to grassland. And so that's our buffer and our outlet and if we have a big breakdown, and it's just again, cows milking 365 and you got a plant, so having that outlet is value to us, and we appreciate that. Profitability standpoint, first 2-3 years was a big negative, then 2 years of climbing out of that big hole, and then now it's just, I'd say insulated, not like wildly profitable margins, but better than if we were selling, yeah, so it's just the patience level. It took us a long time to get here.
Jerry?
For us, like the Craves, we operate the two businesses as separately, and the farm, the dairy sells milk to the creamery. Right now, Elise is using about less than 10% of our milk that is going to her. And then the rest we sell to Bongards Co-op. And so they come every other day just like they always did. As far as the profitability, how do we see that? We see the creamery having a much higher profit margin potential than what the dairy does now with what I think is a new paradigm in margins on the dairy, commodity dairy. I think those will continue to stay low and trend that way in the future. Whereas in our case, we're making only specialty cheeses and we market them as such. We're not trying to compete against any of the commodity cheeses. And so we're much higher priced, and there is a good margin there. And the farm tours, we charge $10 a person. We make a margin there, and our farm dinners also have a significant margin. So we'll try to keep working that.
Yep, good. I know we're getting close to the noon hour, but if there's a quick question yet, here. All right, great.
Try to on, Scott. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. So when you guys started this whole process, you guys are all dairy farmers. You're not marketers. Where did you get the experience about this, or did you have outside resources that you leaned on to give you some advisement on where to go?
We started out, like I said, we talked to a marketer, and he said, I've heard 300 people come to me and say, is a farmstead cheese factory feasible? So we talked to him. He came and checked us out to see if we were real or not. My brother started doing research. He joined the Wisconsin Cheesemakers, went to some meetings, got some advice from some of the cheesemakers there. We said, well, geez, now if we're going to get started in this, we have to hire a cheesemaker. And the guy says, oh, they're all over. Run an ad in your local paper. We said, what the heck? So we did, and we got 3-4 responses. Yeah, I live in Watertown, or I live in Columbus. And we hired a couple guys. One of them's still with us that managed a goat cheese factory in Watertown, but he didn't want to move to Marshfield. Wanted to stay in Columbus. So he's worked for us since before when we were building the cheese factory. He came and started working. We connected with him from a guy that's a cattle dealer whose their daughters play basketball together in Columbus High School. So, right, and there's a lot out there. Another cheesemaker sat with George at a meeting, and they've become really good friends. But he said, if you have the same milk every day and a place to get rid of your whey, he said you have 80% of your headaches taken care of. And I don't think it's 80%, but we do have consistent milk every day, year-round, so we don't have to tweak the recipe every time a truck pulls in. And we do have a way to utilize our whey through our farm. And one thing we made sure of when we started was that we weren't going to lose focus of our farming, our dairy operation, because then you could really falter. So to build a farmstead cheese factory or on-farm processing isn't a way to get out of a bad financial situation, because it all has to get managed. And if you just add more, you have more to manage.
I think recognizing what skills are needed to, it's still basically you're selling food, but it's a people business, and whether it's a grocery store or a mom buying milk for her kids or a distributor, it's a company name, but there's people that run them and own them and all that. And so finding out who they are and having good relationships and knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at. I do good with interacting with people. I do bad interacting with regulatory people. So then I just make that a point that then I'm not there and somebody else does that. So we have people that are good at what they do, and then those are the people that work with them, and then things that some people are not very good at, then we focus on something else. But always, like, it's still, even though there's a buyer, an owner of a store, that's not really your customer. Your customer is still the person, the mom, or whoever's buying that product. And so you're always keeping that in your mind too.
Mm-hmm. Jerry?
And the question was about marketing, correct? And how we got started that way?
Yes, and as far as getting any support or help with that, or dealing with strengths and weaknesses.
The number one thing that worked was that Elise was passionate about doing this, and she started attending the American Cheese Society's annual meeting. Maybe did while she was still in college or right out of college, and attended every year. She didn't have the money to go, but she managed to get herself there and got free admission by volunteering for them and for people that were there. And she created herself a network of people all over the country who were in the cheese business, and especially cheese buyers. And they knew what her dream was, and were on board with her. And there was a distributor in the Twin Cities who had told her, when you're ready to go, you call us. She did, and they were distributing her cheese right out of the get-go. And I think that was really the number one thing she did that got her going.
Okay, great. I don't want to stand in the way from you having lunch, so if there's no other questions from the floor, I want to, first of all, thank our panelists. I was thinking of Elise, your daughter. I believe her resume shows work experience on both Sassy Cow Creamery and Crave Farms Farmstead Cheese. Is that correct? So,
It is correct.
Yeah,
and, she certainly was blessed to be able to work with both of them.
Yeah, wonderful. So, well, first of all, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate everything that you shared with us today, and I think we'd all agree that it was very informational, informative. And also, just thank you for everything you do for the dairy industry. It's, you know, we need more people like these three farms, and a lot of people here today are a great testament to that. And so just thank you for what you do. So an audience, thank you for attending. Appreciate you being here, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you. All right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks for moderating.
No. That's something I do every day, but I guess we all got through it.